So, when it comes to protecting yourself, it's important to set clear boundaries about what you're willing to share or lend. Always require repayment of loans before even considering new ones. Notice those red flags, when someone pressures you to override your comfort level. Try to maintain relationships with people who actually reciprocate care and support. And, trust your feelings if a relationship consistently leaves you feeling depleted. Warning sign number 5 is impulsivity and accountability avoidance. This 5th pattern involves individuals who consistently make reckless decisions and honestly refuse to accept responsibility for the negative consequences of their choices. Understanding chronic irresponsibility goes beyond the occasional poor judgment or mistakes that, let's face it, everyone makes. Here, we're discussing individuals who show persistent patterns of impulsive behavior combined with, systematic blame shifting when things go wrong. Now, let's talk about some behavioral patterns. Chronic instability looks like frequent job changes, relationship endings, or location moves without any clear progression or learning. There's also reckless decision-making, where choices are made that disregard obvious consequences for themselves and others. Blame externalization is another one, consistently attributing their problems to other people, circumstances, or just bad luck. And finally, a lack of learning, repeating the same destructive patterns without any apparent insight or behavior modification. So, when their impulsive decisions create problems, these individuals, they tend to reframe themselves as the victim of circumstances or, other people's actions. They often create these elaborate explanations for why nothing is their fault. And honestly, they can become quite angry or defensive when others suggest they might actually bear some responsibility. Instead of addressing the actual issues, they use emotional manipulation to gain sympathy. Now, let's talk about accountability avoidance tactics. First, there are those victimhood narratives, consistently portraying themselves as wrong parties, no matter what the situation is. Then you have excuse creation, always having some explanation for why they couldn't meet commitments or why the problems just aren't their fault. There's also responsibility transfer, where they expect others to manage the consequences of their decisions. And of course, emotional blackmail, using guilt, anger, or even threats to avoid facing accountability. Mike showed a consistent pattern throughout his adult life. He was fired from multiple jobs, always blaming supervisors or co-workers. His relationships ended badly, with each ex-partner labeled as crazy or controlling. He borrowed money from friends and family for various ventures that failed, always due to unforeseeable circumstances. And when friends tried to discuss these patterns, Mike became angry and accused them of not being supportive during his difficult times. Life pattern recognition. It's quite the skill to master. Look for these overall life patterns. A history of broken commitments across multiple contexts, relationships that follow similar negative patterns, financial instability due to poor decision-making, and geographic or job changes that seem more like escaping consequences rather than pursuing opportunities. And, there's also the consistent external attribution for personal problems. Now, let's talk about the emotional impact. Being close to someone with these patterns often results in, frequently cleaning up their messes, making excuses for their behavior to others, and feeling responsible for their problems. You might even experience guilt when you try to set boundaries, and the exhaustion from the constant drama and crisis, it's quite overwhelming. And finally, protection strategies. It's important to avoid becoming responsible for managing another adult's life choices. Don't lend money or resources to people who consistently make poor decisions. Notice if you're making excuses for someone's behavior to others. Set boundaries about what problems you're willing to help solve, and recognize that you cannot force someone to learn from their mistakes. It's a tough journey, but one worth taking. Developing healthy discernment, well, it's really about understanding these behavioral patterns. This serves several important purposes, but it also, requires a balanced approach. The goal of awareness isn't to make us suspicious of everyone or to start diagnosing people with psychological conditions. Instead, it's about developing healthy discernment, like how much trust to extend and how quickly, what level of access to grant in relationships, when it might be wise to seek additional information or perspective, and of course, how to protect your own well-being while still remaining open to genuine connections. It's important to remember not everyone who occasionally displays these behaviors is necessarily a danger. You'll want to consider a few things. Situational factors, since people under extreme stress may temporarily act in concerning ways. Growth and change, because individuals can learn from mistakes and develop better relationship skills. Cultural differences, since communication and relationship styles can really vary. And mental health considerations, because sometimes certain behaviors might reflect treatable mental health conditions rather than deeper personality patterns. So, let's talk about the balanced response approach. Instead of reacting to just one incident, it's, really important to document patterns over time. When you're concerned about someone's behavior, try to seek out multiple perspectives. Trust your instincts, of course, but also stay open to any new information that comes your way. It's wise to maintain your boundaries, but do so without becoming defensive or hostile. And above all, prioritize your own well-being while still treating others with basic dignity. There are times when seeking support is honestly the best thing you can do. Consider reaching out to mental health professionals, trusted friends, or support groups if you find yourself feeling consistently confused or drained by a relationship. If you notice your own behavior changing in ways that concern you, or if you experience persistent anxiety or depression related to specific relationships, that's a sign to get help. Also, if you catch yourself making excuses for someone's harmful behavior, or you feel isolated from your support network because of one relationship, don't hesitate to seek support. Now, if you've experienced manipulation or exploitation, the recovery process, well, it usually involves a few key steps. First, acknowledge the impact without minimizing what you've gone through. Start rebuilding your personal boundaries and work on trusting your own judgment again. It's important to reconnect with supportive relationships that may have been affected. Learn to recognize healthy relationship patterns for the future, and perhaps most importantly, practice self-compassion about any mistakes in judgment you might have made along the way. The ultimate goal of understanding these warning signs is really to create space for healthier, more authentic relationships, all while protecting yourself from those who might cause harm. So, what do healthy relationships actually look like? Well, first, there's consistency between public and private behavior. Then, accountability when mistakes occur. There's also reciprocal concern for each other's well-being and respect for boundaries and individual autonomy. Honest communication, even when it's difficult, is key. And, emotional availability during both good and challenging times really makes a difference. When it comes to protecting yourself, here are a few strategies to keep in mind. Gradual trust building, so allowing relationships to develop naturally over time rather than rushing into deep connections. Multiple relationship sources, maintaining diverse friendships and connections instead of relying heavily on any single person. Regular self-check-ins, paying attention to how you feel after spending time with different people. Boundary practice, regularly practicing saying no to requests that make you uncomfortable. And of course, support network maintenance, keeping relationships with people who know you well and can provide perspective. When communities become educated about manipulation tactics, these behaviors become, well, a lot less effective. Consider sharing appropriate information with trusted friends and family, supporting others who may be experiencing manipulation, modeling healthy relationship behaviors in your own interactions, and seeking education about psychological manipulation and relationship dynamics. Developing these awareness skills is honestly an ongoing process. You don't need to become an expert overnight or feel responsible for identifying every problematic person you encounter. Instead, focus on continuous learning about healthy relationship dynamics, trust development in your own judgment and intuition, boundary maintenance as an ongoing practice rather than a one-time decision, and self-care prioritization as a foundation for all your relationships. Remember, the goal isn't to become suspicious or closed off to human connection. Instead, it's to develop the discernment that allows you to build deeper, more authentic relationships with people who genuinely care about your well-being, while also protecting yourself from those who might exploit your openness and trust. Your emotional well-being and personal resources are truly valuable. Investing them wisely in relationships that offer mutual respect and genuine care creates the foundation for a fulfilling social life, while also protecting you from unnecessary harm. It's important to understand a bit about crisis indicators. Not everyone in crisis becomes violent. In fact, most people experiencing suicidal thoughts, major losses, or a sense of hopelessness never harm others. The real concern, though, is when these crisis indicators appear in combination with other warning signs we've discussed, things like fixation, boundary violations, concerning communications, and preparatory behaviors. Let's consider a real-world example. A man lost his job and blamed a former co-worker for reporting him. At first, he sent angry messages and called repeatedly. Those are concerning communications. Then he started showing up at the co-worker's workplace, which is both a boundary violation and, surveillance. His messages became increasingly hopeless, saying things like, "I've lost everything, I have nothing left, and you destroyed my life." These are crisis indicators, especially when combined with blame. He went on to purchase a firearm, which is a preparatory behavior, and then sent a final message. "Tomorrow you'll understand what you've done." That's classic countdown language and a final communication. The co-worker, recognizing these patterns, immediately contacted law enforcement. The man was intercepted before reaching the workplace, and weapons were found in his vehicle. The recognition of crisis indicators combined with the other warning signs very likely prevented a tragedy. So, why do crisis indicators matter so much? Well, threat assessment research consistently shows that violence risk increases significantly when someone is in psychological crisis, particularly when they blame another person for that crisis. The crisis creates both motivation, things like revenge, despair, or perceived justification, and removes inhibitors, making the person feel they have nothing to lose. Now, let's be clear about what this warning sign is not. It isn't normal grief or sadness after a loss. It's not just a temporary depression that gets better with a bit of time or some support. Stress-related behavior changes that are clearly tied to external pressures. Those aren't what we're talking about either. And, well, simply seeking help or support during tough times, that's not a crisis indicator. So, what should you do if you spot these crisis indicators? You need to treat this like a potential emergency. Crisis indicators point to an elevated short-term risk that really does require an immediate response. Now, contact law enforcement straight away if someone makes statements suggesting imminent violence, or if those crisis indicators are combined with access to weapons. If they've communicated specific threats or timelines, or they're engaging in final act preparations while expressing anger toward others. Well, that's when you must act without delay. If the person is experiencing a suicidal crisis but hasn't threatened others, here's what you should do. Contact crisis intervention services like the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in the United States. Involve mental health professionals and notify people close to them who can offer support, and keep an eye out. But always remember to maintain your own safety. Never put yourself at risk. Right? So it's absolutely vital to implement maximum safety precautions immediately. Consider temporary relocation if you can. Make sure to vary all your routines, just to avoid predictability. Inform law enforcement, workplace security, and school security about the situation. Have a specific safety plan in place for if the person shows up unexpectedly. Keep your phone charged and accessible at all times. And, well, try to stay in public or around others whenever possible. Please do not attempt to counsel or help the person yourself if you're the target of their anger. Even well-meaning attempts to help can often escalate the risk. Honestly, professional intervention is absolutely necessary in these situations. Trust your instincts. If you feel you're in immediate danger, act on that feeling no matter what. Leave the situation, call 911, and go somewhere safe where there are other people around. This is warning sign 5. Statements or behaviors indicating a psychological crisis point, especially when combined with blame, anger, and other warning signs. Crisis indicators are particularly time-sensitive. They suggest you may be in a window of elevated risk that requires immediate protective action and professional intervention. Don't wait to see if things calm down. Crisis situations can escalate rapidly. Taking action. What to do with this information? Now that you understand all 5 warning signs, concerning fixation, escalating boundary violations, threatening communications, preparatory behaviors, and crisis indicators. You have the framework that threat assessment professionals use to evaluate risk. But awareness alone isn't enough. You need to know what to do with this information. If you've recognized multiple warning signs, this isn't about panicking, but it is about taking the situation seriously. Multiple warning signs appearing together significantly elevate concern and warrant professional assessment. Your action steps: document everything systematically. Create a timeline with dates, times, specific behaviors, exact quotes, and any witnesses. This documentation serves two purposes. It helps you see patterns clearly, and it provides crucial evidence for law enforcement or legal intervention if needed. So, it's really important to consult with professionals. Depending on your situation, you might need to reach out to law enforcement, especially threat assessment units if your area has them. If the situation involves a current or former partner, domestic violence advocates can provide valuable support. For issues at work, workplace security or HR should be involved, and if it concerns someone at school, campus security is the right contact. And for more complex situations, private security consultants might be necessary. Don't try to assess the risk yourself. Threat assessment, honestly, is a specialized skill. Professionals are trained to evaluate these patterns and recommend appropriate responses, so it's really best to rely on their expertise. Create a safety plan that includes, a few key things. People you can contact in an emergency, safe places you can go, and varied routines to reduce predictability. Think about security measures for your home, vehicle, and workplace. Set up a communication plan so others know how to check on you. And, importantly, know what to do if the person appears or tries to contact you. So, inform your support network. Tell trusted people what's happening. This isn't gossip, it's about creating a safety network. People just can't help protect you if they don't know there's a concern. What not to do? Don't confront the person about their concerning behavior. This often escalates the situation and honestly can accelerate their timeline if they're planning violence. Don't try to maintain the relationship out of politeness or hope it will improve. When someone is displaying multiple warning signs, maintaining contact often increases risk. So don't minimize your concerns or talk yourself out of taking action. Trust the patterns you've identified and, respond appropriately. Don't try to handle this alone. These situations really require professional assessment and quite often multifaceted protective responses. And here's an important perspective to keep in mind. Understanding these warning signs doesn't mean you should view everyone with suspicion or interpret every conflict as dangerous. The vast majority of difficult people are just difficult, not dangerous. These warning signs help you distinguish between normal human conflict and patterns that indicate elevated risk. They help you know when to set boundaries and when to seek professional help. The goal isn't to live in fear. It's to live with appropriate awareness and preparedness. Most of you watching this video will hopefully never need to use this information. But for those who do need it, having this framework could literally save your life. A final crucial point: your instincts are valuable. If something feels wrong, even if you can't quite articulate exactly why, that feeling deserves your attention. You see, our subconscious often picks up on danger cues before our conscious mind can fully process them. The warning signs discussed in this video give you language and a framework for what your instincts might already be telling you. Trust yourself, document what you observe, and seek professional help when you recognize concerning patterns. And remember, your safety is always worth taking seriously. The knowledge you've gained today is powerful. Use it wisely, share it with others who might need it, and never hesitate to seek help when you recognize these patterns in your own life. Your awareness combined with appropriate action is your best protection. Resources: National Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-797-23-3988. Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call or text 988 FBI Tips 1-800-CALL-FBI. That's 2255-324 or tips.fbi.gov. And don't forget your local law enforcement non-emergency lines for threat assessment consultation. Remember, when in doubt, seek professional assessment. These situations are complex and benefit from expert evaluation.